This was the fall of 2002. We lived on 11 acres outside a small town in western Wisconsin. Our house backed up against a stretch of state timber that ran for almost 2 miles before it hit the river. My name's not important. What matters is I was a lineman for the county electric co-op, which meant I spent my days climbing poles and reading storm damage, and I knew how to notice when something in the landscape didn't sit right. My wife Carol taught 3rd grade. We had 2 kids, Tyler, 10, and Emma, 7, and a yellow dog named Rusty who'd bark at squirrels for an hour straight if you let him. It started small. A game camera I'd strapped to a white oak 60 yards from the tree line, aimed at a game trail, hoping for whitetail. It ran on 8D batteries and saved pictures to a memory card the size of a matchbook. Nothing fancy. This was before anybody had a smartphone. You had to walk out there, pull the card, and bring it inside to look at it on the family computer. The first week gave me deer, 3 does, a young buck, a raccoon that tripped the sensor at 2 in the morning. The second week gave me something else. I was sitting at our desk in the spare room, the big beige tower under the desk, the CRT monitor humming, dial-up screeching through its handshake, clicking through thumbnails one at a time, because that was how slow it was back then. Photo 41 showed the trail at dusk. Photo 42 showed the same trail at 11:14 p.m. There was a boot in the corner of the frame, not an animal, a boot, just the toe of it, at the very edge of the picture, like whoever was wearing it had stepped back a half-second too late. I remember calling Carol in to look at it, and both of us leaning close to that glowing screen, trying to convince ourselves it was a shadow, a stump, anything but what it was. We told ourselves it was probably a hunter scouting early. Bow season was coming. People walked that timber all the time. Then Rusty started barking at the same spot every night around 11. Not the excited squirrel bark. A low, steady bark aimed at the dark like he was telling something to stay where it was. A few days later, I noticed the clothesline in the backyard had been taken down and put back up wrong. Looped the opposite direction like somebody had walked through it and reset it without thinking about which way it was supposed to hang. Carol said I was probably remembering it wrong. I wasn't the type to remember something like that wrong. Then Emma's lawn chair, the little plastic one she left by the swing set, turned up on the back porch one morning. Nobody in our house had moved it. I want to be clear. None of these things, by themselves, meant anything. A boot in a photo, a backwards clothesline, a chair on a porch. Any one of them I'd have shrugged off. It was the way they kept stacking up one every few days that started working on me. I put a second camera up, this one facing the house from the tree line instead of out at the woods, an old digital point-and-shoot I zip-tied to a fence post, set to take a picture every 15 minutes through the night. I told Carol it was for the deer too. That was the first time I lied to her about it. That second camera is the one that changed everything. I printed the pictures at the drugstore, the way you did back then. Dropped the memory card off at the photo counter. Came back an hour later with a yellow envelope of 4x6 prints. I sat at the kitchen table and went through them while Carol made dinner. Most were nothing. Dark yard, porch light, the shape of the swing set. But 3 nights running, in the far left edge of the frame, there was a shape standing at the tree line, not moving between frames, just standing. Same spot, 3 separate nights, 15 minutes apart in some of them, like whoever it was could hold still for a long, long time. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up in the kitchen with the porch light off and the curtain pulled back an inch, and I watched that tree line until almost 3 in the morning. I didn't see anything, but I knew, sitting there, that whoever this was had been watching my family a lot longer than a few weeks. The next clue came from somewhere I didn't expect. Our neighbor, a farmer named Hollis who'd worked that land his whole life, stopped by to borrow my cordless drill and mentioned, almost in passing, that his hired hand had seen a car parked at the old gravel pull-off on County Road J twice in the last month. Not a car anybody recognized, just sitting there for hours, engine off, nobody around it. That pull-off was less than half a mile from our property line, at the start of an old logging road that cut back into the timber. I started walking that logging road on weekends, telling myself I was just checking the property line, the way a surveyor might walk a boundary. Tyler wanted to come with me every time, and I let him, because keeping him close felt safer than leaving him at the house. About 3/4 of a mile in, I found a spot where somebody had cut back brush along an old deer trail. Not much, just enough to walk through without snapping branches. Spent matchsticks pressed into the dirt at the base of a big shagbark hickory, maybe a dozen of them, weathered different amounts like they'd been left there over weeks, not one visit. I stood at that hickory tree and looked back through a gap in the leaves, and there was our house, the kitchen window, the swing set, Emma's bike on its side in the grass. From that spot, you could watch my kids play in our own backyard, and nobody in that yard would ever see you. I didn't tell Carol what I found that day. I told her I wanted to put a lock on the gate and get a second dog, and she didn't argue with either one, because by then she'd started noticing things too. The mail flagged down when nobody had checked it, muddy prints on the back porch steps one morning that led nowhere, like whoever made them had turned around at the door. I called the county sheriff's office. A deputy came out, walked the trail with me, looked at the matchsticks and the cut brush, wrote it all down, kind but honest with me. No crime had happened yet. Trespassing on state timber wasn't going to get anybody arrested in a hurry, not without more. So I did what people in that part of the country did. I asked around. Hollis mentioned a retired game warden 2 towns over, a man named Pruitt who knew every trail, cabin, and deer stand in that stretch of woods going back 30 years. I drove out to see him on a Saturday, and when I described the hickory tree and the cut brush, he didn't hesitate. That trail runs up to the old fire tower, he said. Nobody's used that thing since the 70s, but there's a line shack near the base of it. Hunters used to keep gear there. He said it slow, like he already didn't like where this was going. I asked him to come with me. We drove as far as the logging road allowed, then walked the last mile, Pruitt moving through that timber like it was his backyard, me trying to keep up while my mind ran through every version of what we might find. The fire tower came up out of the trees before the shack did, a rusted steel skeleton maybe 80 feet tall, leaning slightly. The kind of structure the county had probably forgotten still existed. The line shack sat at its base, a leaning square of gray boards with a door that had rotted off one hinge. Inside, somebody had been living rough. A sleeping bag, a camp stove, canned food stacked against the wall, some of it from the same grocery store we shopped at in town. I recognized the labels. And on the far wall, held up with pushpins, were photographs. Not professional ones, the kind that came out of a disposable camera, slightly overexposed, a little grainy. Our house, our yard, Carol hanging laundry, Tyler on his bike, one of Emma at the swing set, taken close enough that you could see the gap in her front teeth. There were dates written in pencil on the white border of some of them, going back nearly 4 months, longer than we'd even had the game camera up. I don't remember exactly what I said. Pruitt told me later I didn't say much of anything, just stood there staring at that wall like I was trying to make it not be real. We climbed partway up the fire tower, and from the platform you could see our roofline clear as anything. The swing set, the driveway, even the glow of our porch light starting to come on as the afternoon dimmed. Whoever had built that nest up here hadn't needed binoculars most days. He'd just needed to sit and wait. We called the sheriff's office from Pruitt's truck radio. No cell signal out there. 2 deputies came out, then a third, and they walked the shack and the tower and bagged what they found. The photographs, a spiral notebook full of handwriting nobody could make full sense of. Times and days and short notes about our routines. What time Carol left for work. What time the school bus came. What nights I worked late at the co-op. They never found the man who wrote it. There was a partial print lifted off a can inside the shack, but it didn't match anything in the system. A description went out. Average build, dark jacket, seen twice at that gravel pull-off, but nothing ever came of it. Hollis's hired hand couldn't say much more than average-looking fellow when the deputies asked him to describe the car he'd seen twice on County J. We moved a few months later. told people it was for Carol's new teaching job, and that was partly true. But the real reason was that none of us could look at that tree line the same way again. Before we left, I went back out to that shack one more time, on my own, just to see it empty in daylight. The sleeping bag was gone. The deputies had taken the photographs and the notebook into evidence. But someone, I don't know who, I don't know when, had come back and swept the dirt floor clean, like they were trying to erase the fact they'd ever been there at all. I never got the notebook back. The department told me later it had been misplaced during a records transfer a few years after the case went cold. I don't know if that's true. I've stopped trying to guess. The last picture that old fence post camera ever took, the night before we pulled it down for good, showed the tree line empty. No boot, no shape standing still in the dark. Just, if you looked close enough at the far left edge of the frame, a faint orange point of light in the black with no visible source.